By the time I was 16, I'd lived in 26 houses in 10 different states. My family was one of those, you just don't show emotion. We had to learn those things on our own later on in life, and probably that was one of the things that added into my first marriage too, that the fact that it was very hard for me to turn around and just even talk about what was going on. Mm-hmm. You dealt with it yourself. You fixed your own problems. You don't think anything in life will challenge you, try being a single dad of 2 young girls. That's when I really probably should have been reaching for God. And the only times when I did was when it got so hard that there was one day, they say anywhere between 65 to 90,000 thoughts come through your head every day, and 80 to 90% of those are negative thoughts because that's what society teaches us. We all hear it. We know it's there. And the only way that you're ever going to start to really make a change within yourself is if you start to change that mental track and get things on a positive level all the way around.
Here's an interesting fact. 58.2% of the people who watch these videos aren't subscribed, and a good 28.3% of them don't even like us. But you're not one of those people, so you're going to subscribe. Thanks and good night.
I was just telling Laura how I used to hate public speaking of any kind. I'm very uncomfortable and all that, and I got tricked to do it in my professional career. They came in and asked me if I would come in and sit and watch their instructors, how they teach, and see if I would want to become an instructor. And I walked in the door and I said, okay, where did you want me to sit? And oh no, you're teaching this, and this.
Oh yeah.
Somehow it took off from there, and I don't know, crazy stuff. So
what were you instructing?
The company I was with was Waters Corporation. We dealt with all the pharmaceutical and biotechs around the world. Not only do they make the leading instruments, but we also make the world's leading software, doing all the analytical crunching of numbers. And I was the master of that software pretty much worldwide. So,
wow.
Though I didn't know chemistry for a lick, didn't have to. You just had to know how the software worked well. So yeah, I learned from my customers all the time. So it was pretty cool. Kept that up for a good while, and then started traveling the world for them. So then it was kind of unique. Interesting career.
Yeah. Well, we're rolling.
Oh, okay.
So
where do we go? Where do we begin?
I guess the reason I asked you on was because you just always struck me as a very interesting individual who has seen a lot.
Yes.
You can tell that you've seen a lot. So I don't know, with that context, where do you want to start?
Well, maybe give you just a quick look at how I got seeing everything. Before I was 16, the reason I'm going to kind of relay this is because I know at one point here we will get to the point why drugs became a big part of my life. But my family, when they filled out my application for the military, my mom, because I was going for a top secret crypto clearance at NSA Fort Meade, Maryland, she had to write down every place and address that we had ever lived. By the time I was 16, I'd lived in 26 houses in 10 different states. We weren't military. I don't have a good excuse.
What wouldn't be your excuse? I mean, you're a child.
Excuse, yeah. Just a difference with my dad's occupation, and quite honestly, we were following my oldest brother around between honor farms, reform schools, and eventually penitentiaries, and just one of those type of things. But we kept traveling and moving, and I've now lived in 14 of the states at the same time. So the one thing where we never knew anybody in our lives for more than 6 months at a time, at the same time, my folks were phenomenal at stopping at every single national park, monument, anything that was historical of nature. You know, we were dead broke as a family, but they found everything and anything that we could possibly go to free. And I got to see a tremendous amount of this country and exposed to a heck of a lot. So it was a different lifestyle for sure, all the way around.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Oh, so what branch of the military?
The Army, U.S. Army, the Army Security Agency at NSA Fort Meade, Maryland. And that probably ended up leading me into my worst decision I probably ever made in my life.
Okay.
I had been in Fort Devens, Mass. was school, but anyway, Fort Meade, Maryland, and I was in a room with a top secret crypto clearance for code word access. We actually tracked and watched Russian missiles was our job. This was at the end of the Vietnam War. I enlisted, wasn't drafted. Turn around, and I had been promoted 3 times. I was on the sergeant's commendation or recommendation list. I had 3 commendations in my record, and they walked in one day and out of the blue said, "We think you smoke pot. Your clearance is gone."
Mm.
And I became, from being on one of the elite, they sent me down to be a supply clerk at Fort Polk, Louisiana for an MP company.
Did you smoke marijuana?
Yes, we did.
Oh,
We went off base, smoked it on our own. You got to understand, at the end, this is Vietnam days. I mean, every officer, everybody else, most of the troops were coming back at that point in time and everything else. They were down there getting drunk every night and everything else. We never bothered anybody. We'd go off post and everything else. And I just happened to believe my CO when he came in and gave me this story about that, he had gone through the same thing, and he just fessed up, and they left him alone and everything else. And well, the next thing I know, I'm on my way down to Fort Polk, Louisiana. And that was where my whole life I enlisted at 17. At 18, I made the dumbest choice, and I just said, well, if you're going to call me a druggie, I'm going to give you everything that you want. And I turned around, and basically for the next 18 years of my life, throughout my marriages and everything else, pretty much stayed as high as we possibly could. I never injected anything, but definitely everything and anything else was up for grabs. And it really was a big part of changing my whole life direction and separating me from everything important in life too at the same time. So
what was your mental outlook that made you choose to say, like, screw it, I'm just going to do this? Because it's more than just like the military.
It was
canning you.
It was. If you can think back to what I said about moving and never knowing anybody, my whole life had been trying to fit in somewhere. You never knew anybody. You're always a stranger in town. I hate to say it, but as a young, skinny, blonde kid, and even had a cowlick with the name of Dennis, and I even had a neighbor named Mr. Wilson once upon a time. I caught a lot of grief, and I love sports, and being as thin and skinny as I was, I had to fight twice as hard to turn around and be good. So trying to fit into something, and I hate to admit it, but drugs is a great escape from not only all those pressures, but when everybody's getting high, you get along a heck of a lot better and easier in certain ways. So it was more of an escape than anything else, and trying to look for something in my life that was very empty and missing. So,
were you guys Christian or religious at all?
Yes. I grew up in the church, you might say, as far as in a Lutheran church for the most part. I was the only one of 5 kids that my mom could drag out of bed every Sunday and make me feel guilty enough to go to church with her all the time and everything. I was the 2 older brothers, 2 younger sisters, and for some reason I was the one.
So you're right in the middle.
I was in the middle.
That's where I am.
Yeah,
right in the middle.
Yeah. You know the challenges.
Middle child syndrome.
It's either too young to go with them or to blame for what they did. I never quite figured all that out sometimes.
Well, and it seems like the olders get the negative attention and the younger get all the positive attention.
Yes. And in the
you're
middle,
kind of either left out or the black sheep or something.
I did get the hand-downs constantly from my brothers,
I mean, then you get nothing new either.
Hand-me-downs. And we didn't have much money, as I said. It was kind of, we struggled a great deal. God was always there, but I mean, in the Lutheran Church, the Missouri Synod, it's pretty much fire and brimstone. There was nothing really in my life about a real personal relationship with Christ. Never on a close daily basis, never really there. Yeah, I knew he was there, and there's been some huge examples in my life of his miracles. But at the same time, it was never like anything I've experienced this last couple of years. A complete change in every attitude. When you grow up, my family's parents, that generation was most of them were very unemotional. We didn't have a lot of talks, anything else and all that. So pretty much in not knowing anybody else, you learn to do things on your own. You learn to count on yourself. You're the one to have to fix and take care of everything. And that's kind of the whole way I grew up. And that's where my mentality was. It was never turning to God and letting him kind of take over and help guide me through things. And I carried an immense amount of stress, I think, for dozens of years because of that. You never had a release. It was always counting your shoulders to take care of things.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a huge transformation all the way around to finally find out what a true relationship with Christ really is. Did I have those examples? I kind of mentioned. 1968, we had just moved down from Ojai to Ventura, California. We're walking out the back of the Ventura County Fairgrounds. My brother is 10 feet in front of me. He had screamed saying our dad had just pulled up. We're walking out the back gate. There is a rock band playing right here in the corner, really loud. And he's walking across the tracks to get over to my dad's pickup. And all of a sudden, this lady next to me screams at the top of her lungs, reaches and grabs her little daughter by the hair and is pulling her back. And as I look, this train is coming at 45 miles an hour. It took my brother 150 yards down the track and left him in a heap. He hit it dead center. Cow catcher just picked him up and took him that far down. And he just looked like a little ball on the ground when he got there.
Wow.
11 doctors said he would be dead within the hour. Our pastor at that time came in and asked us what we wanted to do about funeral arrangements for him. My brother today is a pastor in Livingston, California. Survived through all of that, all the insanity. There is nobody but God could have pulled that off. It took several years to get him back up and running and on his feet and everything again, but he truly came through it, and it had to be God's deliverance all the way around.
His older brother?
He's my 1 year older brother than me. Both brothers are older, but yeah.
Wow.
So,
yeah, most people don't survive getting hit by a train.
At 45 miles an hour, they said the guard who was supposed to be there to warn people, one, the train was supposed to be doing 15 miles an hour coming through, doing 45, never slowed down, and they found the guard passed out drunk later on that day.
No horn or...
What's that?
No warning horn?
No, not that you could hear over the rock band.
Got you. Okay.
That rock band was so loud right there. Ventura County Fair is a big event there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, so the rock band's right on the train tracks, and there's a train barreling through.
It's kind of like, as you walk out the gate, the rock band is just inside the gate fence and probably 10 to 15 feet outside of that gate walking across into town. The courthouse is straight up the hill, which is where my dad worked. You have about 10, 15 feet right there. So it's like you could hear every bit of that. It was just that loud. So
was anyone else hit?
Nobody else was hit. The little girl, mom pulled her back before she walked onto the tracks. And that was the only other person that was my range of vision, was to that side. So that's the only person I saw endangered.
Oof.
So, but yeah.
So was there active prayer then for him? Like
11 different churches, they said, were starting different prayer chains for him. And again, I was, not only praying every moment, everything through all that time for the next many years. I had a hard time being around even seeing a train coming on a track. It's kind of like I just pull over because it was kind of like you could just see everything coming back all the time. So, but he's healthy. He's leading a church congregation over in California in a small town, and he's doing okay.
Wow. Yeah.
Praise to God for sure.
So you said military at 17.
Yes.
Top secret clearance, and then you were out at 18?
I had stayed in for 2.5 years, transferred, and I got fought to get part of my clearance back, and they ended up sending me down to Fort Huachuca to do high aerial interpretation, photography interpretation, basically looking for troop movements and all that kind of such. And I got into some things there, and all of a sudden they told me, well, if you want to go, we're going to send you off to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, middle of nowhere at the time, or you can go ahead and get out. And I went ahead and just opted to get out at that point in time. So
where'd you go from there?
Back home, and within probably 6 to 8 months, got married for the first time in a hurry.
Where was home? You were like in 14 different states?
Back to Ventura.
Okay.
This is where right at high school point was the first time that we started to stay at least in one area, because all those moves were pretty much across country, back and forth to Illinois, and it just everywhere. A lot of different things happened.
Did you so what was your feelings like as a child on that? Did you enjoy moving, or like the not being able to lock down and make friends? And because you mentioned never having friends, really.
I got to the point where I would almost not even try to make friends because it hurt so much to say goodbye.
Hmm.
And when you just, you see too many friends just disappearing, and I don't know, it was a very, very tough way where you just kind of walled it all in. And I hate to say it, life has changed, but my family was one of those, you just don't show emotion. We had to learn those things on our own later on in life. And probably that was one of the things that added into my first marriage too, that the fact that it was very hard for me to turn around and just even talk about what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
You dealt with it yourself. You fixed your own problems. It was kind of life.
So you said you got married 6 months after you got back to...
Somewhere pretty close to that. Yeah. Married Nancy, and we had 10 years together. I up and down with different jobs. I actually ended up being a supply clerk for a short period of time, but I was lucky enough I went back and visited the gal who had put me to work when I was in junior high school, and she ran the youth employment service, and I was way too old for that, but I went to her because I was starting a family and I had no income and jobs were hard to come by. And I asked her to put me to work, and she sent me out to this place, and I'm all dressed up, nice shoes, dress shoes, and all the rest of it. I get out to this place. She didn't even tell me, says, all we know is that he needs some help. We get out there, and there's a Clearpoint Homes in Ventura up on the hills. They were putting in 300 homes, and they needed roofing laborers. I'm a hard-working cuss. But when you're up there on a roof, the second story, turning around and lifting up pallets of tile, and you've got it up there, that tile is doing nothing but slipping cement, powder, and dust. I'm in dress shoes. We're up there, we're going through the afternoon, and all of a sudden, I slipped and went back. The forklift's here. It's 2 stories down, and I'm going like this. And this guy just grabbed my arm and just yanked me back onto the roof. He couldn't hardly speak. He extremely stuttering and everything else and all that. But it was kind of funny because at the end of the day, the boss wasn't real happy with everybody. There were like 8 of us that showed up. He paid us all in cash. And he turns around and he says, "Okay, guys, thank you. I appreciate it. Take care." And I turned around and looked over at this guy. His name is Richard, and who had saved me. And I said, "Richard, I don't know about you, but I'm getting in some real clothes and tennis shoes, and I'm going to be back here tomorrow morning, and I'm going to make this man put me to work. Would you want me to pick you up?" And so for the next 6.5 years, Richard and I became a team that was pretty awesome overall for the amount of work and everything else we did. About 4 years in, construction's feast and famine. You've either got a heck of a lot of work or you've got nothing. So it was really struggling financially and all the rest of it. But he moved over to Phoenix, Arizona, and he told me, "Come on over." So I grabbed my wife, and we had a baby at that time. And we went over there, and after about 2.5 years, it was so funny because we were out on a roof, and both of us were kind of realizing that our bodies were getting old, bending over, all that heavy weight. He climbs into a pallet of Mexican tile, which stands about that tall, and you got to climb into it to get the last rows of tile out. He got snagged on that pallet coming out, and it was twisting and pulling him off the roof. And I grabbed him by the shirt and pulled him on the roof. And we turned around and we looked at each other and we said, "Full circle, we're out of here." Yeah. That was our last day we ever roofed together.
Yeah.
So,
well, at least you returned the favor.
Yeah, it was really funny how just how life just kind of brought it all around, because we'd been talking about how we needed to go find something better in life. So, yeah. So,
what's next then?
Went through several things. I took over doing assistant apartment manager for 300 units right next to the ASU campus in Tempe, the Arizona State University. That was kind of crazy. College kids can do wonders to 300 units.
Yeah. I can attest to that. We used to do flooring, and we'd tear out the carpet in college dorms and stuff like that. And
I get this knock on my door on a Saturday morning, and this gal is there, and turn around and she gives me her apartment number. She says, "Can you please come over? We have an issue." Didn't really tell me what it was. So I walk over. There were four separate buildings of apartments, so and they're up on the second floor on the other one. And I walk to the door and it says, okay. And they open up. Apparently she shared the place with two other gal roommates. And I go, where's the issue? And she's going like this. And she guides me back through the living room. And you can tell they must have had one heck of a party there that night. Just a disaster. Goes through the bedroom and into the back bathroom. And in my life, I can't even explain how this happened, but you walk over and look, and the tub on this corner has sunken 6 inches into the floor.
Mm.
I'm looking at her and I go, how many people did you put in here last night? He just started laughing. Somehow, but you get some strange things that happen with college kids. So,
yeah.
Anyway, a couple different things happened there. We got, my wife came down with hepatitis C. We turned around and brought my child over, and the people that were the actual managers, because all of a sudden, not only she couldn't work, I was doing 16 hours a day to make up for time she couldn't work. All of a sudden I got about 103 temp, and I'm working up 2 stories on ladders, putting up stuff, can't even remember the names of it now, the trellis basically underneath the cantilevers that come out. And I basically almost passed out and came down that ladder, and I just told them, guys, I need a day or 2 off. And with that, they tried to throw us out of the apartment completely and just get us out of there. We ended up moving back to Ventura, where my parents were still. And I joined my dad. He had been at Prudential for many years, and I joined the company. Didn't work directly with him, but I went up and sold major medical plans in Santa Barbara and all that area up there. Was doing very well. Very well. And my wife and I had been going through lots of struggles and problems because it demanded a heck of a lot of my time. And I came home one day and found my entire apartment was empty. There wasn't anything but my clothes left in a pile on the ground. And it took me almost 3.5 months to find out that she had shipped my kids off to Alaska with her grandparents, and she had stayed in Ventura. And
how many children?
This was 2 girls at that time. We'd had a second baby as well too. So now I've got 2, because it was a 10-year marriage. This is about 8.5 years into it. I finally got the kids back down and everything else. And then came the second miracle that only God can be responsible for. We were living apart for a good while. Eventually I was able to get to see the kids again and everything. And during that time, I loved her deeply in my marriage, and I was committed to it, and it tore me apart. And I was having an extremely difficult time working. I didn't miss a day, but just really messed up as far as head trying to keep focused and everything else. And that with as much pain as I was in. And I went and, again, being without the kids, I went in and my counselor sent me to this place. They gave me some medication. And as strong as I was, and yes, we were still doing normal drugs, but as strong as this drug was, I could not even begin to focus taking it. I had gone into the pharmacy. She asked me, do you need a child-proof kit lock on it? And I said it doesn't matter, and didn't even think about it. I took that stuff 2 days, put it on the back of this night shelf that I was over. My wife finally let the kids come on over and spend a weekend with me. And I slept on the bed. They had sleeping bag right next to the bed. The alarm went off. I went into the restroom. I wasn't in there for probably 30 to 45 seconds. And my oldest one said, Dad, Leah's not sitting down. She had gotten out of the sleeping bag, got over there, and she had taken a handful of these pills that were insane. I mean, some kind of an experimental drug they were trying at the time. I don't even know the name of it. It was so strange.
What was it for?
Anxiety, depression, okay. All of that, was dealing with. I broke every speed limit law in the world, flew across town with both those kids, flew in, walked with her in my arms, walked right past the nurses and put her in the doctor's arm and had the bottle in my hand and said, she just took a bunch of these, please do something. She went through all kinds of emergency surgeries. They airlifted her down to Children's Hospital in LA. And because her throat had swollen up so bad, as well as part of everything they were dealing with the intubation and all, that they had to do a tracheostomy that she then had for the next year. Um, I don't know if you know what it's like basically not being able to sleep for a full year, but
My wife does.
yeah. They have this breathing tube in and it gets clogged constantly. And basically you have to have a monitor right at your ear that you hear them breathing every breath. And when it clogs up, you got to go in and do the suctioning and all the rest of it. But anyway, she lived through that once a month surgeries. We had to drive down and just God, first off, she probably should not have lived, the doctor said, through the massive impact the drugs had on her to begin with, but then just everything else. And she was amazing through it. She was only 2 years old at the time and just, I don't know. Again, God came through in ways that were just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So
that's rough though. Like I can't imagine that.
Wasn't too long after that year finished that my wife and I finally, she left. Strange things happened.
So when she left you, was that before the incident with your daughter?
No, we'd gotten back together.
She said she let the kids come over.
Yeah, she let them come over. We got through all of this, and for a good while, it pulled us closer together. And we stayed together for the next year and a half or so in that time. But eventually, it came to a kind of a screeching end. Her mom had just become partial heir to a $10 million cattle farm estate. And her mom had the audacity to keel over at the age of 47 at the dinner table in front of the family and die of a heart attack. And she was the sweetest, most wonderful mother-in-law any guy could ever pray for. She was just an angel. She could make you feel good when you were really having a tough day type person. So it tore the family apart, and we were still in our drug days, and she basically ended up wanting, she was 18 when we got married. I was 20. She had never had a free life. We had 2 kids. She wanted to take off and party, so we made a deal. She basically took whatever we owned, and I kept the girls, and I became a single dad then for the next 8.5 years. And if you don't think anything in life will challenge you, try being a single dad of 2 young girls. That's when I really probably should have been reaching for God. And the only times when I did was when it got so hard that there was one day, I think my wife had thought that, I'd have the kids for 6 months, give up in defeat, and hand her the kids. She really only wanted the younger one to come live with her because the older one reminded her too much of me. So she wanted to split them up, and I was not going to let that happen to my girls. But she was fighting back in ways at me to try and kind of set me on my heels. And about a dozen things happened in a very short period of time, and to the point that I was losing it, and I fell in my living room down to my knees, and I just said, God, I can't do this. I don't know what's going on. Something, I need to catch my breath. Everything inside of me, as much as I was able to take care of things and resolve things, this was just beyond me. I was losing it. And it was almost like, I can't say that I ever hear God, but it was almost like he was saying, I was just waiting for you to ask. And for the next 2 weeks or so, not one bad thing in any way happened. And if you knew the kinds of things, she had all my utilities shut off. I'm real broke trying to keep 2 girls alive and keep a roof over our head. And they won't even turn the utilities on unless I came up now with new deposits and everything else and all that. It wasn't her boyfriend, and she didn't send him, but this guy who was trying to impress her came over and stabbed all the tires on my car. And I'm sitting there. You're talking about so many different things. My job was going flaky. They wanted more hours, and I'm a single dad raising 2 girls, and it's just a lot of different things going on. So, those were the times when I wish I'd have been smart enough to kind of hang on to God longer. And even as things got a little better, just keep reminding myself to use him. And I just really never knew about that kind of a relationship with him.
Mm.
It didn't come till much later. So, but, during those single parenting years, again, I'm still, mostly at that point in time, I was down to just smoking dope. And to be real honest, I had become what my brother-in-law, where I met my second wife through him, she was the maid of honor at his wedding, and I was his best man. He rode as an associate member of the Hells Angels.
It's a good group, guys.
They really are. They really are. The majority of them, by all means. There's some, you hear one part here that might not be so good. They were good friends. They came over, took care of me when things were going wrong, anything else and all that. They just kind of, because I grew some of the best plants in the world at that time, and they loved it dearly.
Yeah.
But anyway, came over one day, and my brother-in-law was with them, and they came and they wondered why I was feeling a little bit down. And I said, well, my brother had brought me this guy over that his family was hurting. His kids have been playing with my kids, and I went ahead and fronted him a bunch of stuff. He never brought me the payment for it as he promised. And I said, and then he came over and I fronted him a little bit more to kind of get him on his feet and just said, make sure it gets here. Didn't happen. And now he's at that point in time, we're talking back in the 80s. It was, I think, probably $400 or $500 that he owed me. And the other actual angel who was with my brother-in-law said, let's go collect. And we went over to his apartment, and upstairs apartment, we walked in that door without knocking. His family's all there in the living room. And I had no idea, but the angel gentleman, I can probably use his name because he's dead now. He pulled a gun on the guy sitting on the bed, AJ, the person who'd had the dope from me. And he says, you go look for whatever you can find. And we went into the back rooms. And the next thing we know, we're back in there trying to find anything that we can sell or get anything to get any money back or whatever else. And out of the blue, we hear this fight break out in the living room. And I mean, Jim Oliver, the angel, has got this gun pointed up into this guy. This guy is fighting and trying to just trying to make his family look like he was trying to be a man or something. I don't know what the mentality was. But if that gun had gone off, I came in, I saw it. They were on this bed that they were there, and I just jumped up on the bed and I grabbed AJ's head and I just started banging it with my knee to turn around and said, let him go, because there. And his little daughter jumped up on that bed next to me. The daughter had been playing with my kids and was just screaming at me right there in front of my face going, leave my daddy alone. You're hurting him. Leave my daddy alone. And I can't even tell you what went on inside of me at that time, but just kind of started to freak a little bit. Again, I'm still a single dad at this point with my 2 girls. We got out of there. Luckily enough, the gun didn't go off. And I say luckily because 2 weeks later, that same angel shot and killed a guy in Port Hueneme down the road. So I don't think it would have bothered him if that trigger would have gone off, but I'd be in prison today probably. But that's the day I finally went home. And for 4 days, I just locked myself in that house and I stayed in. And I realized that if I didn't give up this drug world, that life was never going to get better. I had tried many times to give up, over the years. We all do. You fight all the feelings and everything else, but all it takes is getting around your friends and, slow but sure, it's all just take a puff or whatever, and just drink and whatever else. And there was a lot of alcohol involved too through this all. I knew then, and I made the commitment that at that point in time that I needed to move away and be away from all my friends and not go back. And just because I knew good and well that if I was ever going to break from this, it would never happen otherwise. Mm-hmm. So that was really the time when I finally got away from 18 years from when I did that military thing to now that I finally made a real break away from an everyday way of life. Wasn't easy, and a lot of changes and challenges along the way with everything. Um, um, During part of this time, um, I was real hard at not taking charity from anyone, not my parents, not anybody else or anything else. It's kind of like, you're meant to raise your family, you're the one responsible for them. That counselor I had been seeing sent me to this lady. She announced she was moving to Massachusetts, but she wanted me to go see this friend that she knew. And I walked in and I had no idea who she was sending me to, but it was the State Department of Rehabilitation. They ran me through a battery of 7 tests. Now, at this point in time, I was cleaning buses for a living in Oxnard, California, in the heroin capital of Southern California. Not a great place with my reputation. Trying to raise the family and everything else and all that. And out of the blue, they come back in. I took the tests on Monday. On Friday, they call me back in. And they say, we got good news and we got bad news. The good news is you've scored amazing on every one of these tests, from aptitude, intelligence, everything else. Everything is just exceptional. And we're going to finance you into absolutely any occupation of any kind that you want to go to, whether that's 6 years of college or anything else. And I hate to say this, sometimes years blur, but this was still while I was married, right before that divorce had happened, when this all occurred. The challenge to the whole thing was the fact that, and I mean, didn't matter what I wanted to go into, an apprenticeship program for the trades, IT. Santa Barbara had the second highest, up next to Massachusetts, for computers and all the rest of it. Anything I wanted to do. The bad news is that they could not give me one dime for any kind of living expense. Mm-hmm. So if I chose college or something else, my wife wasn't working. I would still have to be working a full-time job at the same time. So the bad news is that you've got to tell us by tomorrow what you want. I'm cleaning buses. I'm wiping the puke out of the back of buses that the winos drive around in, 25 cents, and then fueling buses all night long and getting home at 1 o'clock in the morning after we close out the yard. And somebody all of a sudden opens a door and says, whatever you want in the world, but you got to tell us by tomorrow. That night I had a class at Ventura College, because I continued over the years to try and take night courses, business management, computer science, everything else I'd tried, and kept going. And I went up to the teacher and just said, I can't be here. And I gave him the quick spiel of what happened. And I said, I'm going to go over to the community center. He says, get out of here. I'm in there, and in those days, everything's microfiche. So I'm sitting there asking them to pull files and give me things for different careers and all the rest of it. And about 10 minutes before 10, this gal comes over that had been helping me all night long up at the counter, taps me on the shoulder and says, sir, we're closing in 10 minutes. And I just gave a sigh. And she looks, she goes, can you tell me what this is all about? So I just gave her a quick thing, and she goes, I got to go take care of something. She goes, give me 15, 20 minutes. She met me at that door. She came back. She opened up and kept that place open until 2:30 in the morning for me, just helping me try and find something. God puts people in your life sometimes, even when you don't even know he's working for you. I couldn't go take college, obviously, and all that, but I realized there was a vocational school in town. And the way that it worked is I turned around and got into the computer programming class. And then at nighttime, I would ride my bicycle across town. And I was the night foreman for building the number 100 in the chain of the Black Angus restaurants. All my construction skills came back into play. And so I did that for the better part of a year. And then very convoluted things, a lot of different companies, because computers in those days were failing. As soon as a startup would happen, things would fall apart, all different kinds of things. but it gave me a complete different angle in life and a different chance to finally get in eventually with a company that I spent the last 27 years with. So, but,
it's a big swing and turnaround.
huge, absolutely huge. When I got married again, the gal again, my maid of honor at my brother-in-law's wedding, we got married and we stayed married for 20 years and we had one more daughter. So now we got 3. The first 10 years were pretty decent. The last 10 years, to be very honest, I basically was there just to make sure that my youngest daughter had some common sense and good things to work with. There wasn't much in the relationship left for the two of us. I needed to make sure she had a strong foundation going forward in life, and I don't want to be negative about her by any means, but all I can say is after 20 years, turned around, and at that point in time, I was traveling. I'd advanced through the company from initially with telephone support to leading their training group to becoming the world leading trainer to then stepping into a world-wide product manager role. And then for the last 17 years, I was out doing installations of massive computer installations for all the pharmaceutical and biotech companies around the world. So you talk about from cleaning buses to doing $1 million operations. Yeah. God's got a sense of humor sometimes. So.
Were you like on a technical end? Were you like coding?
All technical.
I started hardware, software?
A little of both. I started programming. That's when I got with the computer programming and all the rest of it. But it ended up, I ran an electrical company and their 2 subsidiary companies as well too. And too much detail to go into, but basically another company heard about me and turned around and asked me. And this company, after I had worked 80 hours a week for them, didn't want to give me a decent pay raise and asked me to do their other 2 companies the same way. And I just turned around and finally said, okay, I need to go talk to this company that's been after me. And they just wanted me for simple phone support. So from having massive stress every day and running systems and being in charge, simply answering the computer and talking people through how to run a PC and the software for chemistry. And it just led a progression step from software. And again, this company, Waters Technologies, they're a multi-billion-dollar worldwide corporation. We dealt with all the pharmaceutical, biotechs, everybody that does any kind of chemical separations. And they make the world's leading instruments and they make the world's leading software for it. And I ended up going down the road of the software, taking on again, from phone support, worldwide problems, then a worldwide product manager, teaching that software for 4.5 years all over the country. And then also just into networks and took off from there.
Did you enjoy that line of work?
I loved the aspect of the mental challenges, but the stress load was incredible. Every pharmaceutical company, I give you an example, Watson Corporation down in Corona, California. Every day their servers are down, they reminded me that they were costing them $1 million in production a day. They have to be up and running. They can't ship drugs without this data for the FDA. And it's the kind of thing where you've got to make sure things are up. So we would work every time I was on the road. I'm leaving my house at 4:30 every Monday morning to catch the 6 a.m. flight. I'm back Thursday, Friday, sometimes Saturday, depending upon the size of the installation. And I would come home. My worst contribution to my marriage was that I would come home and I was such a DIY guy with all my construction, thinking when I came home that the way to show love to my wife would be building them a nice, beautiful home and taking all my time, putting all my energies into doing that instead of spending good time with the lady who probably wanted to spend time with me, I hope. Anyway, so I was just going from one stress to another stress in a way, and I carried that for way too many years. It took a long time for me to even recognize I was even doing that I was so wound up and so caught up in my world of trying to provide and take care of them and give them something nice and all the rest of it, to stop and realize that time with them would have been made a whole lot more difference in every aspect of our lives.
Hmm.
And no, I wasn't real good at bringing God into that situation either for all those years. Something I have seriously regretted over time, and I think he's helping me change things at this point. So,
Do you mind if I ask why you work so hard?
I know some reasons, but number one was for fighting for approval from my dad. There is no doubt. Trying to make a man who saw the world in black and white only. There was no gray in anything else. And if you didn't live up to his standards, he always, wasn't always, but I mean, it was the older teen. It was that generation. We always said his weapon of choice was the belt. He would turn around, and even if I did things wrong, my oldest brother, like I said, did major wrong things and ended up in penitentiaries. And as I said, we're talking armed robbery and other things. And he would turn around and look at me and says, "You're going to end up just like your older brother." Mm. Those are things that you're just trying to prove him wrong. And I've just always had a strong work ethic. I've started my first job when I was 10 years old. Cleaning houses for people all day long and getting $10 at the end of the day type thing and all that. And I earned my money all the way through those years, from newspaper routes to I had 12 yards during high school and all kinds of stuff. I always worked hard. Just who I am. I don't know. Kind of built in there, but why?
I mean, that's not a bad thing. It just seems like in today's modern world, like you have like either lazy people or you have people who work themselves to death.
Yeah.
And finding that balance and that work-life balance, or just sitting still with yourself. I don't know.
That is something I am learning more about. And this latest chapter in life has helped teach me a tremendous more about that. That's got a heck of a lot to do with Nacogdoches. So, big change.
So what kind of technical stuff did you do with the company? Like you were building hardware and software. I mean, do you want to get into the nitty gritty? You want to get esoteric about it? Or?
The basics, what I would do is turning around, and we had, again, this software package was intense to the point. Oracle, I was an Oracle DBA as well too, and that I could go in with SQL and tear databases apart and all the rest of it. Sometimes we had to do that. For the most part with the installations, it was getting our Oracle-based application to work with corporate information systems, and with all the different security changes and all the different things that were there, you were always running into nightmares. So I stayed on a very technical end, working with the IT staffs and getting all this stuff done. Funny part was I never got to play with the toys like phones and all the rest of that. Some of those baffle me. I can tear a server apart backwards and forwards and get things running, but no, not so much with all the other stuff. Very challenging all the way around. And unfortunately, I was one of those guys. And again, I covered at the one period of time, I had the 13 Western states was my assigned territory. I had over 200 companies that I was responsible for. And whenever issues would happen, there's always emails, calling me on the phone, whatever else and all that. And I would be logging in at the hotel at night, everything else. So it was just that kind of a lifestyle where I was just constantly on demand.
I guess every build was different and had its own.
Each one has its own unique things. There was no, what do they call it? A cookie cutter sheet thing. It's like, no, everything would be unique. Every company, every IT staff had their own situations and demands, all types of things. And then you were working in strange environments at times all the way around as far as where they were. A lot of it was laboratories, but there were a lot of things that went on in different places that you'd have systems all over campuses that you'd be running around trying to get everything taken care of. So high demand, high stress, always production. And I made the dumbest mistake of my life. In 2016, the company announced that for the first time that they were going to do a buyout of all the older employees, but you had to turn 62 in 2017 to be able to take advantage of it. I knew I wanted to go ahead and retire because we've been looking at moving to Panama and going from there. I made the silly mistake of telling those 200 companies, like, folks, I only got a year left. If you need me to take care of you beforehand, let me know. The busiest year of my life. Everybody wanted me to come take care of them before I finished. And I mean, they were like family. They really were. And I felt responsible to them, and they really appreciated everything that I did for them. I mean, I left on an amazing stride, but I've never worked harder in my life than that very last year. Next time I probably wouldn't tell them. And my boss tried to convince me to stay, but it wasn't going to be another 3 years until they offered that plan again. So the trick of it is you had to turn 62 in that 2017. My birthday's in December. So I had that whole year. I was the very last person, and all the people in the company who accepted and all that who could retire, because you had to wait till your birthday to be able to do it.
Gotcha.
So it caught me. So
how did your occupation evolve from like when you started till the end? Because like that's a technological gap between the 90s and 2016.
Huge. If you look at it from the computer day and age, I started again. I talked my way into a guy programming and got in and basically built a software package for a chiropractor's office. We were working with Schlegg Hardware, and they had a $5 million contract, but we couldn't get past something. So all of a sudden it came in, and this is during the single parenting years. All of a sudden, IRS has come in and slapped chains on the door, and the boss has disappeared down to somewhere in South America with company funds and the assets. I was going home that day after finding out I don't have a job now. My last 2 paychecks bounced. My car died on the freeway. I could not even afford the tow bill, much less trying a repair bill. And I got 2 kids that I'm taking care of at the house. And the landlord decides that he's not even going to wait, because I went to him and I told him, I says, I've never not paid a bill in my life. Give me a little time and I'll make sure it's taken care of. He wouldn't even wait. He came in at 6:00 on a Monday morning and had a bulldozer come into the backyard, and it actually took off the back corner of the room that my daughters were sleeping in so that he could construct and build it into a 2-story place. I broke. I call the police and say, can you stop this? This is endangering my children. And they look at me and said, this is a civil matter. You have to hire an attorney. I don't have a job. I don't have money. I can hardly feed my kids. No car, no anything. And I don't know how I was going to get an attorney to do anything. That led me into working for a hospital. And then from there, Pleasant Valley Hospital in Camarillo, California. And then I took over with Taft Electric, the company that, again, with the 3 different ones. And I became the systems administrator for all 3 of their companies. And then again, off then to phone support and through the chain of Waters Corporation. And all I kept learning every day. I mean, it was part of it. It was just, I had a drive in me to learn and want to do better and try to succeed. And I guess still trying to prove to my dad I was a worthwhile human being at times, and actually had a career. A lot of different things were involved.
Any hobbies?
What's that?
Any hobbies?
My passion was basketball.
Okay.
Yeah. My knees have reminded me now, after 45 years of playing, that.
Well, I know you like your pickleball.
And now I'm pickleball. I had no idea pickleball. Panama taught me pickleball. So,
gotcha.
Yeah. We just, one guy there knew it, and we turned around and talked to the guy at the resort who owns it there. And he would let us take the company parking lot, the hotel parking lot, and turn it into a pickleball court. And we learned it. So that is actually how I got introduced in a way to Nacogdoches as well, too.
So, basketball. So you kind of, when do you
love.
Find time to sleep? Playing basketball, building a house, flying all over the place.
You're running high energy. I was always high energy.
Burning the candle at both ends, or did you maintain?
For the most part, I did okay. And it was kind of cool because part of it, my daughters loved playing sports too. I even coached their teams, basketball teams as well too. I always found I was always high energy to begin with. I mean, in our generation, they never would have given you all the drugs and called you ADHD, but most of us were anyway. It was kind of like that was just normal. the village right now, as you know, out there at the village neck, it's they kind of enjoy the fact that I've still got high energy, though they try and tell me to slow down, sit down, and take a rest because we're out there working pretty hard most of the time. But yeah.
So what made you decide to go to Panama?
Well, you see my travel all my life. Not only when we finally able to live in a place, like when I lived at corporate, I was in the same house for 10 years. But again, I was traveling all over the country and all over the world at times. My nomad spirit was satisfied. I'm staying with it, but at least I have a place I can call home. When I took the networking job, we moved out to Reno, Nevada. And I just saw all my friends and folks out there and that we had made their retirement. They basically sit around playing video poker and having beers in the pub and all the rest of that stuff. And I just did not want to be a sedate lifestyle for my retirement years. So I had been looking for about the last 5 years before retiring at where in the world to retire. Used to be Costa Rica was the number one place, and Panama had actually moved up quite a bit. So as retirement got real close, I was only about a month and a half away. My third wife, Lenore, we'd been together at that point for about 6 or 7 years. She came in and I said, I'm looking at this thing and there's this Panama relocation tour event where they take you all over Panama. They show you places. They introduce you to bankers, to lawyers, to real estate people, everything else and all that to get a good foundation as far as, moving down there. Because she was on board with going down. And I told her, I says, I think it's coming, but it's 2 days after I retire. And come to find out she was excited about it, and then her face dropped, and come to find out, because I had no time on my own to do much of anything other than build the house and everything else. She had planned a fishing trip for me to go down and turn around and take a week of fishing and everything else, and goes, well, I says, we get to Panama, we'll have plenty of time for fishing. So anyway, went down to the trip, and it just worked out to the point that we took a trip down there together first after that, and just decided Panama was a beautiful country. And for the next 5.5 years, made it a place. And we got away from the expat towns, and we lived out in near a small fishing village that's only about 2 blocks long, Boca Chica. A nice little gated community area there that was mostly expats from all over the world, but just not in David, Panama City, or
more
Boquete.
Touristy type.
All touristy, yeah. All mostly spoiled expats, a lot of them. They wanted to treat the Panamanians more like slaves than friends and people. And I mean, those people down there, if you help them in any way and be respectful of them, they really will give their backs for you and just do anything they can to help you and do anything. Panama is just amazing. And we lived out right at the edge of the rainforest. We not only the pickleball court, but we also built an 18-hole disc golf course right through the middle of the rainforest.
So watch for the boa constrictors as you
lots of
as you
most
thought
of the boas were smaller, mostly the monkeys. We had 3 different kinds of monkeys, and some of them would just sit right over our heads as we're throwing discs. The howler monkeys in particulars would be right there. Quadamundis, Jagarundi. It's a jaguar like cat animal. We actually had crocodiles there, crocodile. All kinds of different animals that we had going through there all the time. Most of the snakes were non-venomous, so
that's always good.
I'd pick them up and just throw them in the woods and everything else and take them back there. So smaller boas. I think the biggest one was probably about 4 or 5 foot, and it was about it. So,
but the food was amazing.
Bland for the most part.
It's not.
Everybody thinks like Mexico and South American countries do a lot of spicing and flavoring. It's really not so much.
Yeah, but you had to have a lot of like fish and
tons of fish,
fruit and
tons of fish. Boca Chica is kind of considered the sport fishing basket of Panama. You can only go out on boats once in a while because they are pretty pricey. You're talking to go out on a boat for a day, you're $500 to $600 a person, but you're bringing back enough El Dorado, mahi-mahi, or tuna, yellowfin tuna, or whatever else and all that you can fill your freezer, and that stuff freezes really well. And you could have a great fish dinners and everything else all the way around. But other than that, it's an awful lot of chicken. You don't much like Panama beef because they don't age any of it. So it's extremely tough and you have to let it sit in your refrigerator for like a week or so to soften up.
Mm.
Different tricks you get used to and everything else. But spicy wise, mostly pretty bland diet that the majority of them have overall. So,
Interesting.
Yeah, kind of unique.
Yeah. What? I mean, there must have been shore fishing though, right? Did you fish regularly, or what was your?
I tried to at least once or twice a month for sure. Sometimes more than that. But again, you couldn't go out on the boats. We would also go out. There really you can't fish much from shore because it's all built by volcanoes. So there's an awful lot of rock all around out in the oceans and everything else and all that. So you're catching your lines and lures and that on everything. But we would take dinghies out, the pangas, and go out around the areas for inshore fishing and all that all the time.
Yeah. So you fully retired at this point? Like,
oh yeah.
Did you find you like?
Well, you might say that.
For as busy as the guys you sounded like, it must be hard to.
Well, I'm busy every day.
I'm retired now. Like I don't do stuff anymore.
And then came the village knack.
Yeah. Well, you haven't left Panama yet. I mean,
this is true.
How long were you in Panama?
5.5 years.
Okay.
And honestly, I did the same thing, and that's when I really learned where my big mistake was. I was doing the same thing. I was coming home and working on this house. We got this 3-bedroom, 3-bath house that the guy had built as his second home, and basically all he ever did was park his kayak on it. And his wife was a Panamanian. He's American. And he would just park his kayak there because his wife didn't want to move down there. She hated the beach. So she lived up in Boquete at their other house. He'd come down and take it. Never spent a dime on the house. Not a wall was painted. Nothing was done. So I went back to my DIY days and started working on that house nonstop. Not to mention being in the rainforest, you have jungle growth everywhere. It was funny when they even drove us to see the house originally, you couldn't even know there was a house there. You couldn't see the house from the road and you could not see the road out. And I really turned this place into a magnificent place all the way around. Just beautiful inside and out. And it was in a community. There were 200 lots in this Rincon Beach Estates community, only 21 houses in there. So we only had the people, and most of them were only there for 4 months of the year. Typically, they come down for dry season. You got rainy season for 8 or 9 months of the year, and then dry season is 3 or 4 months of the year. And they would all come down December, January, March timeframe for the most part. You were almost glad when they all went home because the amount of activities, celebration, constant doing things together and everything else. It was a great community, but at the same time, it was kind of nice when they went home and you could rest up a little bit. So, but I was still way too driven doing things instead of spending time with my wife. Yeah. And I have to admit that it's something I learned.
Even after retirement and
yeah,
you're just hanging out.
I stayed active. Yep. It's hard. It's hard to give up that gene when it's something that you're just so used to and doing it. I am learning to, and the Village Knack Constance, as you know, Annette, those folks are just amazing as far as truly helping me just kind of stop at times and just say, okay, take off. Actually, next Tuesday morning coming up, I will take off with my RV and my dog and just head off to a lake up in Oklahoma for a week and turn around and just nothing but take in all the changes this last year and a year or so has brought, because it's been significant.
Yeah. So what brought you back to the States?
My wife choosing a different address in Panama about 5.5 hours away without me. I was unprepared. I really didn't see it coming. And okay, God, this is where you really come into play. I have never felt such physical pain as when this all happened and it fell apart, because honestly, it caught me by full surprise. Panama real estate doesn't move fast, so I was there for the next year, but basically every single morning I would get up and take my dog, who I've brought with me to the States. Lucky and I would go walk our beautiful beach. We were only 2 minutes from one of Panama's most beautiful, gorgeous beaches. We'd go down there and just walk, and my whole time was spent talking to God. and just really asking him to help me understand and to change things and to try. Of course, I was fighting and hoping somehow we could restore the relationship and all the rest of it. It wasn't God's plan, and I kind of understand why now, but very hard at that point in time. I had, she never could tell me what it was why she was leaving. She would never let me know. There wasn't violence involved. There weren't any real major arguments of any major kind. We had some clashes, but nothing that was significant enough. We had just gone on a trip. I had promised her that I'd take her to Paris. And in October, we had gone to Paris and had a beautiful, what I thought was the beginning of really maybe starting to get back on her feet again and turning around and getting a relationship. Everything was fine. And then coming right up to Thanksgiving, they turned around, had an event. And because she heard me talking over in a corner with a South African friend who was asking me about the midterm elections, out of the blue, she came over screaming, going crazy about me talking politics. We were talking quietly in a group of 3 guys away from everybody and just kind of tossing. And he was asking the questions, or I wouldn't have even brought it up. And it just set her off. And the next thing I know, she's looking for a lease somewhere else in Panama. To this day, I'm not going to know what all was in her mind. I've learned some of the things, like I said, I should have been spending more time with her instead of trying to do things for her. The dear old love languages or whatever that's all about.
Yeah.
The other part is I should have had God more in our lives. But God really became present, and after 3 months, I'd put the house on the market because all the people there were trying to tell me to stay. We were family. I loved the people and all that, and they wanted me to stay, but I could not stay there and ever get a fresh start. My head would have been around her the whole time, and I just knew if I didn't break away, it just would not have been a good life for me all the way around. Not to mention a big 3-bedroom house for one guy is a little much to maintain. So I decided at that point in time to sell the house. It took almost a year to get it sold. And when I came back, I stopped at my one daughter's house in Bakersfield and my middle daughter. I bought an RV there because they had a great sale going on. I flew up to see my youngest daughter in Reno still and bought a truck there. I had brought my dog with me, left her with my daughter in Bakersfield. Came back, brought the RV and the truck, got the dog, and started going just one town, a different city every week for 3.5 months. And the most chaotic lines through any state, only up and down from Kingman, Arizona, just all over the place, and seeing same thing like when it was almost like reliving as a kid, especially when I hit Route 66 again, because we lived on Route 66 as kids, going back and forth all the time. But all the way along, going and just talking to God at the same time, but seeing as much. And then every Saturday night, I would spend in the trailer, turning around and researching all the local churches, listening to a sermon from the pastor and picking a church. And every Sunday morning, I didn't miss a church morning, going to a service. And if you talk about sometimes how you think God's just making a sermon just for you, it was like for the first 10, 12 weeks while I was going through all that pain and suffering, every single sermon was about the pain and suffering thing. It's like, it's kind of like it was following me around everywhere that I went, that it was going in that direction. I was also staying in touch, and for that full year, I had hooked up with a counselor because I'd made one trip to Flagstaff where I thought I was going to move to when I sold the house. I loved Flagstaff. Beautiful place. But when I went to visit it, they had their worst snowstorm in 10 years, 3.5 foot of snow. I helped the gal I rented a room from. I helped her shovel for 3 days to clear that place and said, I'm not doing this again. I'm not shoveling any more snow in my retirement years. So that's when I decided on the trip going through. But I met a counselor there and I stayed with her for a year doing video calls from Panama to her. And she really, for the very first time, I found somebody I honestly believe God got me to the right person. She didn't want to hear a word about my wife. She wanted to talk about Dennis, who he is, how he got here. And the reason I can share some of those things about like my dad and the rest of it is because she really helped me see more of how Dennis got to be Dennis. And it made a heck of a difference because it let me focus on the things that I saw in myself that were the weakness, the things that I never realized in my life, that I wasn't being good to other folks in ways. So
what was the process of that revelation like, as far as like, because sometimes it's not easy to figure those things out about yourself?
It wasn't at all. In fact, I almost walked out because she started with this silly thing about where you had to hold a doll in your hand and quote, that was going to be little Dennis and you're going to talk to him. I can understand that can work for some people and everything else. To me, it felt pretty silly. I got to tell you, all the way around. I've kept that doll because it's funny, because every now and then it's just the point. I was doing a lot of things, obviously talking to God all the time as well too, and all that. But when I would react to things, and when you finally are aware that mentally you catch yourself, how you're responding to something, and then you realize, yes, that's exactly how I learned, how I was taught, whatever. It all of a sudden, it gives you the power to change things. You have the ability to change, but you've got to be able to recognize how you got there and that you're actually doing it. And those are the things you never really think about yourself.
Like turning off the autopilot?
Yeah. Yeah. Everyday life, instead of just walking and doing the same thing every day in and day out, and actually being conscious about it and asking God to kind of help you see where your shortcomings were and praying through them at the same time. And she was religious based, and it really just, she was the right person. Like I said, different times.
How long did that take you to transition?
I think I'm still transitioning. When you think about it, every day now I'm learning still, and I'm still go back to all of this. But the biggest change was obviously that first year was the biggest change mentally, to accept the fact that I really contributed in ways I was never aware of to the demise of my own relationships. And it was just actions and things where here I thought I was trying so hard to show her my love, that there were things that were detrimental to a relationship, and I just didn't know. Most men never get to see that side of the coin. They don't get somebody in their life who can kind of help them look at themselves and just explore that and see what they've got within themselves that they can change. There was also a phenomenal book. Oh, wow. I was doing both some meditation, twisting God into it definitely, because most of the meditation really doesn't include him, but I used God as a big part of that. But also a couple of books that helped me and forgive me. Now I can't remember the name of it because I've loaned it out and it disappeared. But the whole thing about your mental track, that's the biggest part, I think, for all of us. They say anywhere between 65 to 90,000 thoughts come through your head every day, and 80 to 90% of those are negative thoughts, because that's what society teaches us. We all hear it. We know it's there. And the only way that you're ever going to start to really make a change within yourself is if you start to change that mental track and get things on a positive level all the way around.
Define what you mean by a negative thought.
Well, think about it. Every day, the way that you respond to people, angry or, don't get me wrong, some of it can be dark thoughts too. We all have a dark side inside of us as well too, but just when you go walk into a situation, you take it personal instead of realizing that the other person may have something else completely going on, but you're automatically kind of building up defenses against them. That was one of my biggest character trait problems that I learned, was the fact just that with being new all the time, everywhere I went, all the rest of it, I was extremely defensive. Playing basketball. The tall, skinny guy who always got the 6'4" center he had to guard because I could stop him from scoring. I better be able to be defensive and fight in a heartbeat. It's one of those things where you're always trying to be that way. And that was one of my big problems as well, was when my wife would come at me. I am not trying to be sexist. It was never with a clear thought. Can we sit down and talk? Can you, something bothering me or whatever else? She'd come at me angry all the time. And I could usually take that for a couple of minutes, but then and I could feel it. It was almost instantly where the defenses just kicked in, and all of a sudden I'm just hitting her back at her same volume, usually with facts and truth and that kind of stuff. Didn't get me anywhere. One of the things Anne, that counselor, taught me, she goes, do you want the relationship or do you want to be right?
Mm.
And that's a huge step to realize in your mind,
Yeah.
that you got to get past that. So
Well, and men lean toward problem solving, which seems like very much you're a problem solver.
logic, take
Yeah.
care of problems,
Yeah.
fix it.
And a lot of times a woman just wants someone to listen.
Yeah, well, you learned a lot earlier than I did.
Well, the funny thing in our marriage is that she does it too, but she's honestly probably more the problem solver than I am in a lot of ways, or there's a balance. Like she, in a weird, like she thinks a lot like a man, a lot like a man.
Okay.
Just
The
very, logical, straightforward. You have a problem. How do we fix this thing? And then sometimes I'll be the one who's like, I just want you to listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what to make of that, but
No, it's really true. And a lot of times in that, and just and those are the things that I learned, where I've got to turn around and realize that I can't fix all these things. And again, even in my own life, there are so many things that I really could not fix. I did my best, but the change that has come, Nacogdoches has been a huge change.
So how did you end up in NAC?
Well, let's see. After the month or so through Arizona, another month through New Mexico, back up and down in every place, I came in, I think it was Abilene first. Was it Lubbock next? Down to, I stopped to see my one daughter. The third daughter is in Austin. Went down to San Antonio. I was sitting in Galveston on the beach that final week when Hurricane Beryl came in a year ago. I was in the RV park right on the waterfront, and by the time I left there that morning, I always left on Monday morning. By the time I left that morning, half that RV park was underwater. I was driving up, and I had already, because the Saturday night, again, I would check for a sermon in town. Sunday, always hit church. That Saturday night, I had turned around and mapped out that the next place I was going to be was up in Arkansas, going to head up there. Well, after driving about 4 hours or so in the heaviest rain in the world, pulling that RV up from that day with Hurricane Beryl all the way up, I got so tired, I just happened to pull over and I saw the RV sign for the RV park at the side of the road here at Nacogdoches, right next to Kinfolk there, and pulled in. All of a sudden, first off, the folks there, Pam and her husband Gene, are just phenomenal folks, really nice. But he helped point me towards the Corner Post Cowboy Church out on the loop out there and got me going there. And I just started driving around town, and it just felt the right size town and kind of beautiful. And I said, okay, is it worth looking around here a little bit more and just kind of taking a look and seeing? I went through the first week and said, okay, I'm going to stay the second week. And that's when I started trying to fill out applications to see what a place renting here might be or whatever else. I saw 2 places on Marketplace. I put out messages to them on Facebook, to the Marketplace. Didn't hear anything. I tried all these different apartment online applications, and almost every one of them would stop. It would get to 2 places. One, who's your employer? It wouldn't let you put retired. You had to put in an employer name. It wouldn't let you put in your own name. The form just sat there and said not acceptable or whatever else, but I couldn't fill it out. Or who's your landlord? Who's your past landlords? I've owned my last 4 houses. Again,
That's what you get for being responsible.
it was like everything was against me. And turning around, and I went to real estate companies, and they let me go look at places and everything else and all that. And most of them were pretty run down and beat up places and everything else. And all of a sudden, it's Saturday night again, and I'm going, okay, Lord. I says, I gave it a try. I says, unless you can show me or, and I was sitting there just praying for about 15, 20 minutes. And all of a sudden, turn around, I finish my prayer, and I get a phone call. And one of the gals from that Marketplace I had hit back on the first of the week had turned around, and she called me. She goes, Dennis, I got 75 people that have applied for this place, college kids and whatnot, but something just tells me I should talk to you. So here I am. So many things fell into place here. I needed a bunch of medical care done. Cataracts in my eyes were getting bad. I was able to get those surgeries. Two of the biggest things that really helped, I walked onto the pickleball courts here, missing all my fun in Panama. And this was the first place in all of those different cities, and I had tried in almost every one of them to get onto a pickleball court, and they all said, well, what's your rating? What's this? I came from Panama. We didn't have ratings, anything else. What's your rating? Did you schedule a court time? Did you do this? And it's like I couldn't even get in a simple game. I walked into the courts here at Moroni, and these people, come on in. It's like they were like instant family, and it has only grown deeper and deeper. We have a phenomenal group of people here in Nacogdoches and just most welcoming in so many different ways. After being there a couple months, I had to miss some time because I went through a whole bunch of surgeries. My shoulder, my back, everything kind of went crazy. I'm there kind of alone. I felt a little bit lost at Corner Post Church because I love the pastor. The messages were phenomenal, but unless you were a farmer or a rancher, it was really hard to kind of break in and become part of the community. It's like, no matter how you try to start a conversation, it's
like, hi, I'm the IT guy.
I didn't
need a server built. Yeah,
it was just, there was nothing that I don't know. I couldn't really fit in, and I was feeling a little bit lost. And if you know Joe and Mary Aguilar, they're at Mosaic, and they were out there, avid pickleball folks.
Okay.
And they just invited me to come to Mosaic one time. And the next thing I know, I'm at Mosaic, and I love Terrell, his messages. He really obviously is trying to help, again, bring Christ that much closer into our lives on a day-by-day basis, and I value that drastically. I also made the mistake of going to the Connect group on Wednesday night and meeting that man, John Foster, who
big mistake.
Is amazing. And he came over and sat down with me and was talking and welcoming me and everything else and all that. And, he's gone, he found out a little bit about my moving around, and says, well, how you liking it here? And I says, well, this is good, but I got to find something to do with my time. Oops. He says, let me introduce you to Joyce. Didn't tell me Joyce was his wife. Joyce starts talking to me at first and everything else. She goes, I want you to meet Constance. The next thing I know, I'm going out 3-4 days a week, then 4 or 5 days a week to the village, just helping out all the way and helping everything else. And if you want to talk, there are times I really think God has got a very warped sense of humor about the way he handles things in our lives. They had been after me for quite a long time to come out there and live as a mentor and be out there full time. And I kind of said, nope, I like my solitude. My dog, I get a place I can just go, just unwind and be it myself. And it's never going to happen all the way around. My 1-year lease comes up on the place, and out of the blue, I'd had a phenomenal relationship with the landlady. I had probably spent close to $2,000 on the place, upgrading fixtures, putting in things that didn't, making the place nicer, fixing it up. Not that I do those kind of things, but and making it much nicer. And out of the blue, she raises the rent $250 a month on me. And she used the excuse that it was for taxes and insurance increases, except there's been no tax increase here. It bothered me a little bit. And then 2 weeks later, I turned around and there was a repair on the toilet that needed to be done. And I just asked her a simple question. I said, look, I can fix it this way for free. I'll epoxy it in. But honestly, if you'd like to do it the right way, a plumber should be called and refasten the ring to do it the proper way. And she blew up at me. Like, why do you need all these fixes and upgrades and no one ever else has ever needed that? Now, mind you, they haven't paid for any of this. They haven't done anything. I've just kept them aware that when something was changed or I fixed something, I'd let them know, nothing else. But she was having, I guess, a really bad day or something like that. And at that point in time, it was kind of like there had been a series of different things. Kara moving out of the village, Laura's daughter turning around and moving, and the place came open. And they just kind of said, Dennis, just maybe it's time. And not only did I say, okay, and I've now been out there a couple months, I think, a month and a half, 2 months, something like that. But the gal has not been able to re-rent the place, and she's now dropped the rent back down to the point that I was paying.
Yeah.
And she still can't fill it. And all the college kids are in already at this point in time. But had that not happened, I would
Mm.
probably have never accepted going out to the village full time.
Mm.
So I've told them that they can blame the landlady. So,
Yeah.
it's like, or Joyce, or one of the guys along that chain of line,
Or God.
or God,
Yeah.
him and his sense of humor.
So you're a live-in mentor there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what's that like? You have
One
to
of,
do a lot of listening rather than problem solving?
yes. And it's now it's kind of on the two flip sides. There's a heck of a lot that has to be fixed physically, all the different, we're dealing with 27 houses and all the buildings and all the different repairs, and we're making so much progress. But the people wise, there are some really fine people there who really just need a chance to grow, get back on their feet, feel worthwhile. And you can tell from my life, it would have been real easy for me to be one of those people.
Mm.
I went through so many crazy ups and downs and hardships and everything else and drugs and all the rest of it that there's nothing that makes me any better than them whatsoever. And I believe in them as friends, and I think they're finding out that way. And a lot of it's me listening and trying to help offer guidance at the same time, which is kind of new for me. And all I can do is every time I go back in and I work with them at the same time, and I just go in and I pray to God that he's just helping me help them in some way with his words and what he would have me do, and help teach me along the way too. I'm learning as much as they are, without a doubt, all the way around. It is a life-changing experience. Constance and Brian are the two I work with the most, and I could not ask for two more God-fearing, God-loving people to turn around. And we kind of hold each other accountable, keep things going and in a good way, and just encourage each other too at the same time. And Brian's wife, and we've got Laura, and we've got half a dozen other people there, and that Laura's now going to be there much more full time. You know that, and it's coming. I have a phenomenal group of people to work with as staff, and I got a pretty fine group of people, a couple challenges, but for the most part, an awful lot of good people there that it feels like we are making their lives better and giving them a chance and trying to encourage them to get jobs, to get skills, have them help in different ways and learn things at the same time, take part in Bible studies, all the different pieces. So,
anyone listening who doesn't know what the Village Knack is, you want to give a quick rundown?
Oh, wow. Laura, Constance, the Village Knack, Laura and Constance, I'll probably blow something in here for sure. But basically both of them had troubled sons, and there wasn't much help out there. And through their prayers and friend who introduced them, they turned around and had a dream about building a community where folks who were struggling, homeless, mentally challenged, suffering through life in one way or another in places that just have beaten them down. They wanted a community where these people could come, get back on their feet, and not so much as push religion, but to make it available, try and encourage them to it, and then be the best examples that we can be to turn around for them as far as what it means to God to lead our lives and be in control of things. I just got through seeing the pictures of the original, what they moved into. My understanding is the Bright Foundation bought this 21 acres for them and gave it to them to get started, an old Bible camp. And they've turned this thing into, slow but sure, from what they've started with, which I just saw, to what it is today, and it's growing. The dream is to have 7 little separate communities of 20 houses each, so 140 people there, with mentors and staff and the rest of it at the same time, and all that to help these people. Not only do we provide those classes, but things like macrame, stained glass, wood shop, pottery. They've got an art studio now. They've got a gym. They've got a game room. They've got different things that help them have a normal life and get back. And hopefully we work with them again to try and get them full employment when it's possible. Some of them can't work, but to turn around and give them some real positiveness in their life. The bad news of that is when we get some of these people who we've learned to care about and love, is they start moving out because they're back on their feet and they're ready to actually go ahead and tackle the world again. So, so it's one of those bittersweet type things. And at the same time, there's some folks there that, even soon now I've seen in just the 6 months I've been there, where just, you see an amazing, amazing advance in their lives where they're just in a better place. So.
How's it changing you?
So many ways. The biggest thing is stopping with everything we do. And just every time that I finish a job, especially at my age, on the doorstep of 70, that I just thank God that he's still given me the skills, the talents. And this is, I think this is why I went through so many of those years and so many of those things, is now I can actually be really useful in a good way and just give. But he's given me the skill to still carry on at this age and turn around and be useful and be helpful in given ways. And mentally, there is no doubt it is mind awakening to help me not try to fix things, to be able to actually look and understand where folks are at and try to be the best I can as a person to them, as support or a guidance if possible. I don't have a whole lot of faith in myself yet in those areas because this is something really new for me. But it's one of those areas that I think God is helping me to learn every day out there.
How has your relationship with God changed? Because you mentioned in the beginning that, as Lutheran, hellfire and brimstone, no personal relationship.
This is so different. This is an ongoing conversation every day, throughout the day, constantly. I am not one of those guys who can remember a ton of Bible verses. I've watched so many of your guys' pods in the past and everything else, and you got some pretty fine people and very knowledgeable in a lot of ways. All I know is I'm now talking to God on a daily basis in every way and turning around and having him right here as part of my life and in every way. And it is nothing but strength. He still chastens me every now and then in kind of ways and lets me think about things I could have handled or done a little better in that, and how I learn with the folks that are there. And I don't know. I think they're being patient with me as well, too. So God definitely is. One of the things that's out there right now is they've had some, I guess 3 years ago or so, they had some hives that one of the mentors out there had brought beehives out there. And after she left, they've been sitting dormant. So I started going to the Seventh-day Adventist, has those free beekeeper classes there on Tyler Road. And I've been going the last couple of weeks, and we've gotten a place cleaned up and I'm starting to get ready. So I'm trying to learn and get some knowledge about it. And Kirk, one of the guys there who owns some land property up near us, came down to help me out. And we were talking a great deal about this. And he's going, he says, well, this is one of the things that God can teach you out here is a whole lot of patience. He goes, just pray for patience. And I jump back 10 feet and says, I ain't praying for that ever again in my life. He's given me tons of patience. I'm going to be a lot more careful with my words. And he looked at me and goes, yeah, you got to be a little careful about what you pray for. So,
yeah. Yes, you do. Because he will give it to you.
More than enough times, God has given me answers at times that I didn't realize were answers. Some of those heartaches that I went through in life, the good things that followed, that came out of that as a result of what happened at that time, there's no way to explain it other than looking back and realizing that God probably had this plan for me all along as to where I was going. I just had to finally start taking some time to try to listen.
Yeah.
I'm learning.
Aren't we all?
I hope that never stops. So
yeah. So any advice? I mean, you've had quite a life. What would you say to the young people? Us too. I mean, we're all young. We're all,
Yeah, you're probably younger than my oldest daughter. I only wish, above all else, obviously the very first thing in that, I only wish that I had realized and started learning and talking to God and Jesus every day much sooner in my life. I carried the stress on my shoulders constantly throughout all those years. And it's like the difference it's made, even now, to be able at this time to realize that maybe God is finally telling me, just believe that I have this as a plan and I've got the answers coming. Trusting in God and really on an everyday basis. I do think one of the other things, especially for guys, just what you were talking about earlier, remember those simple words that counselor told me, do you want the relationship or do you want to be right? That's huge. To sit there and argue your point to the point where you've basically have hurt or damaged the other person simply to kind of make sure they understand that this is the correct thing and I can prove it. All you've done is probably take a chance at hurting your own relationship, your marriage, whoever it is. I think that's one of the biggest things I have to learn if I should ever get so lucky as to have another lady in my life again. And I'm old and still learning, so.
Yeah. Yeah, we're all old and young at the same time, I guess.
Very true.
In our own way. Whatever.
That's really true. Your brain feels like you're still 20.
Yeah.
Your body tells you you're not.
I'm not 20 anymore. I'm like, what's going on?
I still have all of that going on up there and all the rest of it. And it feels like you really want to. And you've got the same desires and all the other parts. But just your body kind of says you're going to have to slow down a little bit. So, yeah.
How are you doing over there, Ben? You've been awful quiet this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was.
Gotta let people know you're actually here.
Yeah, Dennis, you have such a voice on you, man. That I could sit here and really listen to you just talk about your life. I mean, it's really.
It's a voice for radio.
Yeah.
Again, remember, this is a guy who hated public speaking in any way. So.
Yeah, but you're on radio. You're not public speaking. There's nobody in the room with you.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. Well, it's kind of funny. While we were down as part of Panama, that Panama relocation tour that we went on, they had us do a video about a year after we moved into the house there at the beach. That's got over 90,000 views. And then they had me do another one 5 years later, before the divorce, before the separation and all happened as well too. And all that is kind of a follow-up as to, the real changes in life and everything else. So that's probably the only times I've really seen a camera of any kind whatsoever. So,
All right. Well, where can we be found, Ben? Or am I supposed to say that now?
No, you say it.
I say that. Yeah. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you get your podcasts, all that jazz.
It's worth it.
Yeah, it's all right. I enjoy it.
Gives you some thoughts and gives some people.
I'm sorry.
Like I said, I learned from them too.
I'm Captain Undersell over here. You don't want me to do your marketing. Anyway, well, thanks for coming in, Dennis.
Guys, I appreciate it. I've appreciated the Bible study and everything else that we share and all the rest of it. It's like,
I really enjoy your story and I enjoy your perseverance. Like basically from the minute I met you, I could tell there's a lot going on there.
Something going on with that boy.
All right.
Sure enough, guys.
Thank you.